Hello readers by eyes and by ears, this is Mari Chen and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are finishing the reading of Devil Venerable Also Wants to Know Volume 1, known as 魔尊也想知道 by Cyan Wings or 青色羽翼, and we're covering chapters 37 through 39. And the discussion at the end, I will explain why not chapter 40, but nevertheless, I hope you all enjoy. Chapter 37, 30 Years Later. In this time, nothing much happened in God of Annihilation. Wenzhao and Liu Xinye's wedding was passed over in a few lines. Afterward, Wenzhao made progress in cultivation with the help of his mental master, working on revitalizing his sect and continuing to investigate his village's massacre. On occasion, he would miss Baili Qingmiao, but never mentioned Liu Xinye. His new wife seemed to have become invisible. The female character all the readers of abusive romance hated so much had been reduced to a shadow. This was how God of Annihilation operated. Wenzhao would get involved with many girls over the course of the story, having short flings with some, all of whom never got mentioned again. Only Baili Qingmiao and the Violet Spirit Master were female characters who consistently showed up in Volume 1. The Violet Spirit Master was a good wife who helped Wenzhao manage his harem, and it was perfect in the reader's eyes. Baili Qingmiao was a plot device. Whenever Wenzhao needed to go somewhere else or fight a new enemy, Baili Qingmiao would be stolen by a new man. Wenzhao would search for her, kill the man, and level up. Then Baili Qingmiao would be stolen again, and Wenzhao would go after her again, killing his way from Zhongli Qian to Wenren E. Yeen Hanjiang had never been mentioned, though, and it was unclear why there was no sign of him in God of Annihilation. Abusive Romance's plot was much more exciting than God of Annihilation's. Baili Qingmiao had left Shangqing's sect in deep anguish, met Zhongli Qian in the Hellfire Pavilion, and had seen through Wenren E's plan, and Wenren E and Yeen Hanjiang had shown themselves. Even the ghost mask's identity had been revealed several 100,000 words in advance. The comment section was on fire, seemingly longer than the chapters themselves, enough to make Wenren E's eyes blur. Extra, extra! Abusive Romance Revised Edition has made the charts again! Never thought this trashy work would make a comeback in my lifetime. Cheers to the author! It was worth following the revisions since the beginning. Not surprising. The author has written so many plot twists, I can't keep up. I can't guess at all what she's going to write next. All the melodrama in the original has become perfectly reasonable and logical. Some people have even put up side-by-side comparisons in the discussion pages. It's really impressive that the author has managed to change the story so much without contradicting the old characters. As a new reader who's only seen the revision, how come someone as lovable as Yanyan had no fans before? Because Yanyan originally only showed up once and slept with an unconscious Wenzhao in front of Baili Qingmiao, making him cripple. She was awful to the protagonist and brought her a lot of suffering. Forget old Yanyan. Now we have our sister Yanyan, who will lovingly wipe the tears off your face while calling you silly girl. Oh, that was incredible. Everyone stands Yanyan? I stand Qingxue. I fell in love with her back when she set up Wenzhao in Liu Xinye. What a unique woman. Oh, come on. Why are you all discussing girls? Isn't Zhongli Qian smart? Isn't Wenren a badass? My God, his badassery has increased in the revision. I've never seen the number 2 love interest pair the MC with the number 3 to get her away from the ML. Ugh. That man has some unique ideas. Let me summarize the previous post. Why does Wenren E want his girl to get stolen? I get the feeling that this time around, Wenren E is treating the MC as a daughter, and now he wants to pick a good husband for his silly girl. Zhongli Qian didn't steal his girl. He sees her as a sister. No, actually, as a little brother. I feel like the next moment, Zhongli Qian will find another girl to introduce the MC to. Baili Qingmiao laughing boldly was hilarious. I never imagined Baili Qingmiao could be described as bold. Wenren E was a genius for coming up with the heart-linking parasites. Looking forward to future developments. I'm eager to see what kind of high literature the author can revise this novel into. Seeing that most of the reviews were positive, with only a few fans of the original story trashing the author, Wenren E nodded to himself, feeling an uncommon sense of accomplishment. Closing the book, he rubbed his missing arm and took out several manuals from his sleeves. He had stolen them while unifying the demonic sects some years back, along with techniques from sects he had eliminated. He even had the methods of the 2 protectors and 4 altar masters. He knew that what he'd gotten from his subordinates wasn't complete. Some crucial points could have been hidden or revised, but Wenren E didn't mind. He didn't intend to actually practice them and just collected them for information. He looked through one jade slip scroll after another, studying them carefully for a whole month. There were hardly any references to blood cultivation to be found. 10,000 years was a long time even in the cultivation world, and most records of the blood arts had already been lost. Wenren E had learned the blood-severing technique when he obtained the Qiming blade. Qiming was a demonic sword born in the blood hell, even older than the blood demon elder, so the blood-severing technique Wenren E had used didn't originate from the blood demon elder. However, there was a line written in the surviving record of the war against the blood demon 10,000 years ago. The leader of the righteous sects at the time, the Sword Immortal, had said that if a blood cultivator wanted to walk the righteous path, then they must rise from their own ashes. The blood demon elder had shown himself to not have such a resolution, and thus was slain by the cultivation world. Rise from one's own ashes? Wenren E wasn't capable of such resolve. He just needed to make some prior arrangements. If he wasn't able to succeed, he had to make sure someone he left behind wouldn't be lost without him. Wenren E had wished to be alone in life and death, to have no connections to anyone. Yet he looked into the distance, toward the direction where Yeen Hanjiang dedicated himself to cultivation, hoping to become stronger to serve his lord. Wenren E also settled down and focused on investigating the state of his body, trying to find a way to absorb natural spiritual energy. At the very least, he wanted to restore his arm. Cultivators were untouched by time. A year passed in the blink of an eye, and Yanyan completed her seclusion on the burning sky drum. She giddily took her subordinates, who had been sent to the main hall, back to her palace, where she had a satisfying session of cultivation. She had increased her power in the past year, and her subordinates received greater benefits in return. Their loyalty to Yanyan grew, and they served her more faithfully. There was just one point of concern. The Right Protector had her subordinates buy many books and ordered them all to read them, hoping to raise a cultured gentleman to satisfy some craving of hers. After 3 months, though, she gave up. It was easy to raise snobs, but hard to find real gentlemen. She wasn't one to force people to do things, and she still liked how her subordinates were direct with their intentions and wishes. The gentleman who Yanyan had been hung up on for all of 3 months before forgetting about had accompanied Baili Qingmiao to Shangqing's sect after leaving the Hellfire Pavilion. Since Wenzhao was currently traveling, Baili Qingmiao greeted several of her elders, then called over Liu Xinye to give the 7-colored jade lotus heart to her. Where did you get such a mystical item? Said her master, Elder Qinrong. With the help of immortal Qingxue, I obtained it at Golden Coast Cliffs, Baili Qingmiao said. I wish to give it to Liu Shizhe to aid in her recovery. In front of the rest of the elders, Qinrong couldn't scold her disciple, but she was frantic. If Baili Qingmiao had gained such an amazing treasure, why wasn't she using it to raise her own realm and instead giving it to Liu Xinye? Her disciple had only one fault, which was that she didn't use her brains enough. After becoming the nominal disciple of immortal Qingxue, this habit had only gotten worse. Silly girl, all you're thinking about is your Liu Shizhe, said Elder Qingrong, blinking desperately at Baili Qingmiao. "Didn't you ever consider yourself? Look at your eyes. You've had your left eye covered all this time. Has it been injured? You ought to have the medical hall elder take a look at it. The 7-colored lotus heart might be able to cure it." Baili Qingmiao's remaining eyes shone clear and bright as she held the lotus heart in both hands. "Don't worry, master," she said. "Your disciple also has desires for herself." She turned to Liu Xinye. Thinking back to the words Zhongli Qian had helped her rehearse, she said resolutely, "Liu Xinye, we've always disagreed with each other. Everyone at Shangqing sect knows this, and I don't wish to hide my thoughts from you. I don't like you, and I'm not giving this lotus heart to you for your sake, but in order to let go of my fantasies." Hearing fantasies, Elder Qingrong sighed deeply. Wenzhao had good aptitudes and was a beloved disciple of Shangqing sect, so even if he had some improper relations with women, the sect elders could look the other way. As long as he didn't cause major trouble or deviate, they would leave him be. But when it came to Baili Qingmiao, who had been infatuated with him for many years, Wenzhao really hadn't treated her right. For each day that Liu Xinye went unhealed, Baili Qingmiao's mind would be stuck on Wenzhao for one more day, thinking dark thoughts like, "I wish Liu Xinye would die already." Her cultivation would eventually be affected. In this way, her choice would be considered as opening a new path for herself. It wasn't out of thoughtless altruism. Of course, Liu Xinye wanted the elixir. She was tired of the way Wenzhao looked at her. She had sacrificed her spiritual root for him, but after their marriage, every time Wenzhao looked at her, he would sigh. He was a kind person and obviously wouldn't say anything like, "You're the reason I can't have Baili Qingmiao." But Liu Xinye kept thinking, if she was stronger, would Shishong like her more? She reached out a hand for it, but Baili Qingmiao stepped away. "Baili Qingmiao!" Anxiety rose in Liu Xinye's heart as she glared at Baili Qingmiao. "I'm happy to give you the 7-colored lotus heart, and I don't need anything in return," said Baili Qingmiao. "But I didn't get this alone. I was only able to because of Master Qingshue's help, so Liu Xinye ought to thank Master Qingxue first." She handed the lotus heart to Tsong-shoo-eh. "Huh?" said Tsong-shoo-eh, who had been dozing off this whole time. With some effort, she lifted her eyelids and stuck an intact hand out of her robe to accept it. She was currently missing most of her body and had to focus on maintaining the flesh on her face, so even making that motion wasn't easy. "Immortal Qingxue," said Liu Xinye, gazing at Tsong-shoo-eh. She could be angry at Baili Qingmiao, but she had no will to defy a wandering immortal. The 7-colored lotus heart was an elixir for restoring spiritual roots and spiritual power, and didn't have much use for restoring flesh. So Tsong-shoo-eh wasn't particularly interested. She was a demonic cultivator, though, and wouldn't give something valuable to someone else even if she had no use for it. She tossed the glowing treasure in her hand a few times. Liu Xinye's gaze followed it up and down, frightened that she would drop it and dirty it on the floor. "Why do you want to give something this good to her?" With effort, Tsong-shoo-eh recalled the events at the Golden Coast Cliffs. "While getting this thing, I crawled in the ocean with no spiritual energy for hours," she said unhappily. After her lord dropped her in the ocean, she had to swim back to the cliffs. Bitterly, Liu Xinye got to her knees. "Immortal Qingxue, the lotus heart is useless to you. Will you please let this disciple have it? I swear I'll return the favor to you in the future." "In the future?" Tsong-shoo-eh furrowed her brows, a scornful look on her face. "What good is that? What if I ascend in the future? What if you die in the future?" Liu Xinye, ... Her master, Elder Qing-yi, quickly stepped in for her. "Isn't this because Xinye currently has no spiritual root and is as good as an ordinary person? Even if she swore to do something for you, she couldn't. That's why she has to promise to repay you in the future." "I don't believe in the future," Tsong-shoo-eh said flatly. "I take payment now. Make a spirit vow that you'll pay me back with a treasure of twice the value. If you can't, your spirit and nascent soul will be mine." Liu Xinye, ... Immortal Qingxue, this demand of yours is too heavy, said Elder Qingyi. It's hard to find another treasure like the 7-colored lotus heart, let alone one twice the value. If you make her take this vow, won't you really be taking her spirit and nascent soul in the future? Of course. It can have some use in refining elixirs or magic items, Tsong-shoo said, unconcerned. Or I can eat it myself, or send word out to anyone interested in buying it. I'm sure to find someone willing to pay good money. Liu Xinye, gritting her teeth, made the vow on her knees. Tsong-shoo roughly extracted a wisp of her soul, then finally gave the lotus heart to her. The whole time, Liu Xinye glared at Baili Qingmiao. Baili Qingmiao only thought back to Zhongli Tian's words. Miss Baili, I want you to turn the final decision over to Elder Qingxue. Not to make things difficult for Liu Xinye, but to test her Wenzhao. If Liu Xinye can't repay her debt, will her Wenzhao help her? He owes this life to Liu Xinye, so it's the proper thing for him to do. If he's willing to watch his wife lose her soul to a pact without lifting a hand to help her, then you'll know you were mistaken about him. Therefore, Baili Qingmiao didn't immediately leave Shangqing's sect and stuck around for a few days for He Wenzhao's return. When He Wenzhao heard that his little Shimei was back, he ignored his wife and ran to Baili Qingmiao. Baili Qingmiao looked at He Wenzhao with one eye, the other covered with a band the same black as Qiu Tongshue's robes. He Wenzhao stopped short. Taking a deep breath, he said, Shimei, your eye. Were you injured? It's nothing, Baili Qingmiao said. She put a hand on her heart and found it calm. Silently, she exchanged a thankful glance with Zhongli Qian before continuing. Shuxiong, don't you want to see Liu Shuje? She's in seclusion right now, and her spiritual root will be restored in a few more days. Shimei! He Wenzhao grasped Baili Qingmiao's hand. With a soulful look, he said, You know who the person I truly love is. But aside from love, duty and debt are also important. Baili Qingmiao pulled her hand firmly away. Shuxiong, she said coolly, if you're someone who values his responsibilities, then while you're in no position to marry me, please keep your own wishes hidden. Don't betray the 2 women in your life. If you can't even manage this, then how can you handle the leadership of the Shangqing sect in the future? How can someone who can't deal with his own problems make the world a better place? She turned away decisively, reporting to the administration hall master that she wished to travel the world for a few decades, to return after she made peace with her emotions. Elder Qingrong tearfully accepted. At the foot of the mountain, Zhongli Qian held a walking cane, waiting for her with a faint smile. The single-eyed team greeted each other with a smile, about to head off together. But Elder Qingxue came after them. She said haughtily, I'm bored at Shangqing sect. I've decided to leave and still find some opportunities to raise my cultivation. I'm so glad Master can accompany us, Baili Qingmiao said, throwing her arms around Qiu Tongxue. She felt her sleeves. Master, what happened to your body? Zhongli Qian, ... Altar Master Qiu truly was exceptional. Thus, the 3 traveled the world together for 30 years. Zhongli Qian rose to Mahayana, while Baili Qingmiao came across many opportunities and managed to rise to body unity, entering the top ranks of the cultivation world. The comments section wasn't altogether pleased at this development. Aw, come on! If Baili Qingmiao and Zhongli Qian want to travel the world, what does that have to do with you, Immortal Qingxue? Ah, come on. If Baili Qingmiao wants to travel the world with her master Qiu, what does that have to do with you, Zhongli Qian? It was all this type of complaint. After glancing through the comments, Wenren E closed the book. He created a new illusory arm with blood mist, opened the array, and left the room. Yeen Hanjiang had already exited seclusion and was waiting outside. Seeing Wenren E exit, he immediately went forward to pay respects to him. His Venerable swept an odd, hungry look over him, then looked away quickly. Top level of void boundary, on the threshold of Mahayana, he said lightly. Sect leader Yeen has shown incredible progress in just 30 years. It's thanks to the spirit gathering array the Venerable set, Yeen Hanjiang said. "Since you are a high-level cultivator in your own right, this Venerable is assigning you a task," said Wenren E, a hand on his sleeve. "There is a traitor in Shuen-yuan's sect who will join forces against us with Wenzhao in the future. His name is Cun Jung-chi. I'm uncertain whether or not he has already joined the sect at this point, or whether or not he has changed his name. Find this man for me." Yeen Hanjiang stared for a moment. He wasn't surprised there was a traitor in the sect. Strictly speaking, Shuen-yuan's sect was all traitors except Yeen Hanjiang. If Wenren E showed the slightest weakness, anyone might turn on him. Wenren E didn't mind disloyalty in his subordinates. He had said before that he only minded incompetence. 30 years ago, Wenren E had never brought up looking for a traitor, whether during the Great Sect War or while sorting out the sect afterward. How come, after 30 years, he suddenly cared about insubordination within his own ranks? Yeen Hanjiang looked up doubtfully, but saw that Wenren E wasn't looking at him. He couldn't meet his Venerable's warm gaze. Chapter 38. Crane-Haired Wanderer. Wenren E had sealed his sense of smell and did his best to not look at Yeen Hanjiang. In the last 30 years, he had not only failed to find a method to restore his body, but his desire for blood had grown over time. While he was cultivating, he had awakened to how to use the blood art on his own. One just needed to use the blood mist that composed their body to envelop the target and dissolve them, then direct the blood to flow into the patterns engraved in one's soul. After circulating it through the body 36 times, the victim would be completely absorbed without a trace, and the entirety of their spiritual essence preserved. A Mahayana cultivator, even if they had unparalleled aptitudes and boundless opportunities, would have taken at least a century to cultivate to this stage. Yet a blood cultivator could gain that power in just 3 days. If someone practiced the blood art from foundation establishment and managed to consume enough cultivators, then before the year was out, they could become a great golden immortal. In a decade, they could surpass the immortal realm and ascend to godhood. Wenren E had said before that the demon in demonic path was distinct from true demons. What was truly a demon? If there was a single demon in a world, then all life within it would go extinct and the land would become barren. That was a demon. In the myriad ways of cultivation, countless worlds had developed countless demons. During primordial times, the gods worked together to seal 180,000 demonic gods. After sustaining losses that more than halved their numbers, they sealed them within the demonic realm, only connected to other worlds via the blood hell. No one could enter the blood hell and return. Following Wenren E's command, Yeen Hanjiang left to verify Shuen-yuan's sect's roster with Altar Master Yuan. Wenren E and Yeen Hanjiang usually didn't pay attention to these unimportant masters and left managing personnel to the rather more shrewd Altar Master Yuan. Yeen Hanjiang would need his help to find Cun Jung-chi. After he left, Wenren E slowly turned around. In these 30 years, he had hoped Yeen Hanjiang would reach Mahayana and let go of attachments to the self and others, so he wouldn't lose his mind if Wenren E died. That way, Wenren E could enter the blood hell without concern. In the first volume of God of Annihilation, Wenzhao plotted with the Blood Demon Elder and Cun Jung-chi. Together, they lured Wenren E to the blood hell with the news that Baili Qingmiao was in danger, and after a round of fighting, managed to knock him into the sea of blood. It seemed some things were predestined. Wenren E was meant to enter the blood hell, and the blood hell was meant to be his grave. He had avoided his destiny to be saved by Baili Qingmiao in the Great Sect War, and Baili Qingmiao had let go of Wenzhao with the help of Zhongli Qian. Wenren E thought that after he had accomplished so much, fate would have been diverted a little. But he had made no progress in 30 years. It seemed he had no choice but to enter the blood hell. Then was Yeen Hanjiang's madness predetermined too? No, it couldn't be. Wenren E looked down at his remaining hand and clenched his fist. Polis would not fall, and Alkaid would not go mad. He would only allow Alkaid to fall with him. He had already told Yeen Hanjiang he could accompany him after he died. He had already prepared for the worst. Now, he just needed to resolve some other problems before he left for the blood hell. When he obtained God of Annihilation 30 years ago, he hadn't paid much mind to the demonic sect traitor, Cun Zhongqi. He couldn't remember this name no matter how much he thought. Xuanyuan sect was big, with each of the altar masters and protectors managing their own territory. Wenren E didn't even know Shu Yanyan had a subordinate named Hulian, so how could he remember a Cun Zhongqi? He had sent Yeen Hanjiang to search so he would be relatively nearby while not being by Wenren E's side. That way, he could resist the blood arts temptation while making sure Yeen Hanjiang didn't feel abandoned. Wenren E didn't mind his subordinates being disloyal. Members of Xuanyuan's sect who didn't want to become the Lord of Demons themselves weren't much worth. But Cun Zhongqi had committed 3 unforgivable acts in the original story. First, he had helped Wenzhao kill Shu Yanyan. Wenzhao hated Shu Yanyan, and joining forces with the perfectly average-looking Cun Zhongqi set a trap to do away with her. Second, he helped Wenzhao eliminate opposition within the righteous sects and put all the blame on Wenren E. Third, he killed Wenren E with Wenzhao. After Wenren E's death, Cun Zhongqi took control of Xuanyuan's sect, while Baili Qingmiao and Wenzhao ascended together. Who knew if the second volume would touch on the Xuanyuan sect again, or how many of the protectors and altar masters had ended up surviving? Even if Wenren E wanted to go to the blood hell, he would enter it on his own terms and not be pushed in by a backstabber. The one in Xuanyuan sect most suited to finding Cun Zhongqi, who wouldn't let information leak, was Yeen Hanjiang. Yeen Hanjiang visited Altar Master Yuan and obtained several ledgers of names. They were very thorough, even listing people who had already died when the old sect master was in power. Altar Master Yuan had also painstakingly recorded when they entered Xuanyuan sect, who recruited them, and any changes in position in the intervening time. This old man entered Xuanyuan sect 300 years ago and became the main hall master 200 years ago. The records since then are all complete. From 200 to 300 years ago, everything's recorded from memory, and they can't exactly be considered complete. Further back than 300 years, there's nothing. Altar Master Yuan might have referred to himself as an old man, but in actuality, he wasn't old, just plump. He looked like a typical middle-aged man. Yeen Hanjiang carefully looked over the names and found no Cun Zhongqi. He returned the records from 200 years ago to Altar Master Yuan and kept the incomplete register from 300 years ago. He planned to check every name who had entered Xuanyuan sect 300 years ago and was still alive now. What does the Venerable need the register for? Can this old man lend a hand? Altar Master Yuan said with a fawning smile. No need, said Yeen Hanjiang, rolling up the list. He had not, at any point, mentioned Cun Zhongqi. If he was a traitor and had changed his name, then he would increase his vigilance if he heard it. Yeen Hanjiang first eliminated all the nascent soul and below names from the list. If your level was too low, you wouldn't even have the chance to backstab in Xuanyuan sect. Those who were still alive after more than 200 years only consisted of the altar masters, the sect protectors, and some of their most trusted subordinates. Tsong-shoo-eh had been a ghost cultivator in the Hellfire Pavilion 300 years ago. She didn't have brains and couldn't be much of a traitor, so could be crossed off the list. Shu Yanyan had joined 150 years ago. Having been close to the old sect master, she was immediately made right protector, so she could be crossed off. Though, she had a subordinate called Wenren E who had remained at Body Unity stage for many years. He had joined Xuanyuan sect 300 years ago, and his record wasn't very detailed. It was a bit odd that he had been content to be Shu Yanyan's boy toy all this time. The final candidates were Wenren E and Altar Master Miao, Ren, and Yuan. None of them were convenient to investigate. Hanjiang returned to Wenren E and reported his findings. Wenren E was seated, reading Abusive Romance in one hand, and nodded silently in approval. Tsong-sheen had made his debut 100 years into the story, so it was possible he was yet to join. But these 4 suspects Hanjiang had found couldn't be overlooked either. They needed to be quietly monitored. Aside from the traitor business, Wenren E also paid attention to Baili Qingmiao's side of things. Baili Qingmiao, immortal Qingxue, and Zhongli Qian had wandered together for 30 years. From the book's description, Tsong-shoo-eh had dropped her cover multiple times, only remaining unnoticed because of Zhongli Qian covering her eyes and Baili Qingmiao being gullible. The plot had had no changes in 30 years, with the author only writing several chapters of slice of life. Even just reading, Wenren E broke into a sweat for Tsong-shoo-eh's sake. Zhongli Qian, on the other hand, was right there with her. It seemed that his hair had turned white overnight 22 years ago. With white hair and a young appearance, he appeared even more like an immortal now. Why did his hair turn white? The reason had to do with the young, innocent, playful, and good-natured new disciple of 18 years old that Baili Qingmiao had taken in. Baili Qingmiao also had a fate with this disciple. 18 years ago, she'd passed by a village haunted by ghosts on her first outing from Shangqing's sect. She had helped exorcise the ghosts and thus delayed her arrival to the 1,000-mile ice plains for a few days, making Wenren E and Hanjiang wait for her. 18 years later, Baili Qingmiao coincidentally returned to the village and found a youth with a passion for practicing martial arts who had managed to make it to qi refining stage without being taught, just a step away from foundation establishment. Baili Qingmiao, who had reached deity transformation by then, decided to take him as a disciple upon seeing such incredible aptitude. While Zhongli Qian was busy helping immortal Qingxue escape the righteous cultivators that had been chasing them down all this time, she helped the boy establish his foundation, and by the time Zhongli Qian returned, the boy had already kowtowed to her as master. Baili Qingmiao dragged him over to introduce him to Zhongli Qian and immortal Qingxue. With his spiritual cognition, Zhongli Qian could see that the boy was cheerful to Baili Qingmiao's face, but behind her back, his expression turned dark and his eyes vicious. When immortal Qingxue loudly praised the boy for being nice and obedient, immediately getting along with him, Zhongli Qian started getting a headache. Baili Qingmiao had said, smiling, "Brother Zhongli, Su Huai was born the day I exorcised ghosts here. Maybe destiny is connecting us." Zhongli Qian instantly had misgivings and wanted to prevent her from accepting the boy, but he couldn't go against immortal Qingxue. He only sat meditating for a night, and the next day the sun shone on his white hair. Baili Qingmiao, ... Brother Zhongli, was it that last night I was anxious about not being able to teach a disciple properly and stayed up the whole night? Did I make your hair turn white? Zhongli Qian slowly shook his head. After Baili Qingmiao had taken her disciple, she was only happily looking forward to their time together. She had stayed up worrying the whole night because Zhongli Qian had stayed up, looking up at the stars and thinking that he'd never be able to correct Baili Qingmiao's ways. Baili Qingmiao was only anxious because he was anxious. "Cultivators can change their own bodies after reaching nascent soul," Zhongli Qian said. "Even if I was worried, my hair wouldn't turn white from it." He tied up his hair, fixing up his appearance. The meaning of his words being that he'd made his hair white himself and wasn't planning to restore it for now. Baili Qingmiao didn't get it, and neither did the readers of Abusive Romance. "This journey has been wild. 3 people have only 3 eyes between them, so that's at least 1 for each. But how come they collectively only have 1 brain? Isn't Zhongli Qian overworked carrying the whole team?" Man, I was mistaken. I thought Qingxue was a good counterpart for the idiot protagonist with how domineering she was, but I didn't know she'd take it this far. If they didn't have Zhongli Qian with them, nothing would be standing in these 2's wake. The only thing keeping Qingxue from murdering everyone they meet or the 2 from being murdered is Zhongli Qian. The more I read, the more I feel like something's wrong with Qingxue. When the Nangguo clan sent out invitations to their newborn celebration, she toppled the ghost-suppressing steel in their back courtyard, exposing how the Nangguo clan extracted the spiritual roots of their bastard and branch children in order to give birth to an heir with a pure spiritual root, and letting loose a bunch of resentful child ghosts. Isn't that a good thing? Immortal Qingxue is such a charitable wandering immortal. The problem is that she didn't denounce the Nangguo clan alongside the righteous cultivators, but instead grabbed the clan head full of enthusiasm and asked how they raised such splendid resentful ghosts, and also whether or not he could give them to her. If Zhongli Qian hadn't explained that she was joking, the righteous cultivators would have exorcised her along with the ghosts. After hearing about the evil technique, she also looked at Baili Qingmiao with her eyes shining. That gave me chills at that moment. I was scared Baili Qingmiao would wake up one day with her spiritual roots stolen. I don't believe it. Immortal Qingxue takes care of Baili Qingmiao the best. She had to have been trying to save those suffering children. Are you as brainwashed as Baili Qingmiao? Even Zhongli Qian can see the problem with Qingxue and he's blind. Can Baili Qingmiao donate her eyes to him? Let my Qian see the light again. I don't care about Zhongli Qian and Qingxue fighting over Baili Qingmiao. There's just one thing that's been bothering me. Author, look up at your own title. Abusive Romance. You are the unchanging one in my heart. How does this story fit this title anymore? It's a good thing that it doesn't fit the title. Yeah, it's a good thing. Baili Qingmiao might have been mystified as to why Zhongli Qian's hair was white, but Wenren E knew. He had used the technique for suppressing ghosts, wordless child. This could only be learned by the 4 great clans who studied Confucianism deeply. Those who used it would experience the vicissitudes of human society in a single night, and their hair turning white as a result. After completing the technique, ghost cultivators would be scared to approach, suppressed by great virtues. And indeed, after Zhongli Qian's hair went white, Qingxue and Su Huai settled down a lot. Tsong-shoo-eh, at least, was a flexible person who had learned from Zhongli Qian to think before she acted, and now first discussed with Zhongli Qian when anything came up. They wouldn't end up pursued by dozens of righteous cultivators anymore. After completing Wordless Child, Zhongli Qian decided to spread philosophy in his wanderings, teaching countryside children how to read and write. The 3 separate generations of Qingxue, Baili Qingmiao, and Su Huai also quietly obeyed him and helped him run his schools. After 20 years, Zhongli Qian awakened to his own Dao, to learn by teaching the people. He had managed to completely break free of the Zhongli clan's fetters, ascending to Mahayana under his own power. At Mahayana, he could easily will his hair to become black, but Zhongli Qian felt he looked more like a teacher this way, so kept his hair the way it was. He took the name Crane-Headed Wanderer, leaving his legacy to the cultivation world. Really quick footnote about that name, it says this just means white hair. Back to the reading then. Over 30 years, the 3 had each made progress in their own way. Even Baili Qingmiao managed to become calmer after years of teaching. At last, the author seemed to remember that her novel was called Abusive Romance, and Baili Qingmiao received a message from her sect. Elder Qingrong told her that the sect master, who had lain unconscious for many years, now only needed an elixir made of the Lockhart herb to be cured. Shanqing sect had learned that the Violet Spirit Pavilion, which had secluded itself from the world for many years, was in possession of this herb. Wenzhao had gone to ask for it and had been given a lot of trouble by the pavilion master. It was feared that Wenzhao would be rejected, so if Baili Qingmiao was willing, Elder Qingrong hoped she could go to help him. Seeing the words Wenzhao, Baili Qingmiao felt a pang in her heart which had been at peace for so many years. Zhongli Qian sensed Baili Qingmiao's pain and said calmly, "We can go together. You have to repay your masters and overcome your own trials. One can't avoid their problems forever. After all this traveling, you might as well see if your mental state has matured." Since Zhongli Qian was already seen as the leader of the group, they all set off for the Violet Spirit Pavilion. The pavilion lay in the far north of the true Yeen mountain, a neutral sect which hid itself from the world. They were a sect shrouded in mystery, who didn't even join the Great Sect War. The revision abruptly stopped here. Wenren still remembered that wandering immortal of the Violet Spirit Pavilion whom he had beaten up once, and her possession technique. Wandering immortals actually arrived at the same state as blood cultivators through different means. They discarded their flesh body for a purely spiritual essence and were not limited by the mortal world. Perhaps the possession technique of the wandering immortal could help him deal with a blood cultivator's desire for blood. Wenren closed the book, deciding he should also set off for the Violet Spirit Pavilion. Chapter 39. Rod of Heartbreak. Wenren couldn't leave Xuanyuan's sect without a word to anyone. Appropriately speaking, if the sect master wasn't around, the new deputy sect leader, Hanjiang, who had been in his position for just 30 years, should handle his duties in his place. Wenren was planning to leave Hanjiang at Xuanyuan's sect and set off for the Violet Spirit Pavilion alone. Xuanyuan's sect didn't have any important affairs he needed to manage, and it hardly mattered if his subordinates rebelled after he left. Since they'd surrender when he returned anyway, Hanjiang was always too close to Wenren and his power was at the peak of void boundary. He never showed any wariness toward Wenren If Wenren were to say to him, "This Venerable needs to consume souls," he was afraid Hanjiang might offer his own up in a heartbeat. It was too dangerous to travel together with him. He would have more ease in restraining himself if he was alone. Thus, before departing, Wenren called over Hanjiang and told him he was heading to True Yeen Mountain. Hanjiang completely failed to clue in onto the fact that Wenren was trying to ditch him. He quietly followed behind, ready to leave with him. Seeing his behavior, Wenren stopped walking, carefully considering what he was about to say. He slowly opened his mouth. "Sect Leader Yeen, about the sect leadership while this Venerable is gone, and the search for the traitor." Hanjiang's expression turned blank. He stared silently at Wenren seeming to think nothing of his own, simply awaiting his Venerable's next order. If Wenren commanded it, Hanjiang would carry it out to perfection, even if he was unwilling. Wenren couldn't continue. Hanjiang maintained his attentive posture, waiting for his Venerable to finish his command. "It can be left to Protector Shu. She's gotten a lot of practice, anyway. Since the other altar masters were overcome by her before, they'll be more wary and less willing to disturb the peace. The matter of the traitor isn't urgent. We don't even have any clues now, but it's possible that if we both leave, Cun Zheng-qi will let something slip." Looking at Hanjiang's expression, Wenren finally completed his sentence this way. Hanjiang's face finally gained some life. He dipped his head low and said, "Your subordinate understands." Wenren furrowed his brows. It wasn't like he and Hanjiang had never left each other's side before. The Lord of Demons came and went when he pleased, and he hardly needed to report it all to Hanjiang. Hanjiang had never asked either. It was just that after reading Abusive Romance, Wenren was worried about Hanjiang's psyche and trying to avoid leaving him alone. Now he wanted to leave him, but felt misgivings. This wasn't right. He had originally hoped to settle Hanjiang down and avoid him taking some actions that would displease him if he died, so he paid more attention to him. But now he felt less comfortable about leaving Hanjiang alone. When Wenren wanted to go somewhere, since when had he paid attention to how dejected Hanjiang looked? And since when had it softened his heart? "Hanjiang," Wenren said, switching to using his name. "This Venerable is not a god. He is the same as you, just another cultivator journeying on the path to divinity. This subordinate understands." Yeen Hanjiang said, still bowing his head. Admiration is all well and good, but you need to walk your own path. Do you understand this? Wenren took a step closer. He put a hand on the back of Yeen Hanjiang's neck, his thumb by his ear, applying pressure and forcing him to raise his head. The distance tinged both their faces slightly red. Wenren sensed the essence of a sword cultivator that surrounded Yeen Hanjiang, which was top-quality spiritual essence to a blood cultivator. Wenren had not been able to absorb spiritual energy for 30 years, and he felt dizzy. The pressure of his hand on Yeen Hanjiang's neck strengthened as the incantation for absorbing blood surfaced in his mind. With just slightly more force from his hand, he could dissolve Yeen Hanjiang into blood, and his soul and all his spiritual essence would belong to Wenren. Blood chi tinged Wenren-'s face red, but for some reason, Yeen Hanjiang was blushing too. He struggled out of Wenren-'s grab and said, cupping his hands, "This subordinate understands. This subordinate will put every effort toward ascending to Mahayana to help his Venerable." Yeen Hanjiang, backing away, returned some control to Wenren. He suppressed his surging blood chi and turned away. "Message Shu Yanyan and tell her she's the acting sect leader." After Yeen Hanjiang sent the message talisman, Wenren didn't turn around, just departing in a streak of light. Yeen Hanjiang frantically brought out his sword to chase him. He gnawed on his lip. What did his Venerable mean by those words? Did he notice Yeen Hanjiang's intentions? While they were talking, had Yeen Hanjiang let something show in his expression? Yeen Hanjiang continually berated himself that in the future he had to be more vigilant around his Venerable. He was the deputy sect leader and ought to manage Xuanyuan sect in the sect master's absence. He should not be disheartened because he couldn't follow his Venerable around. Even if he felt pained, he couldn't let any of it show. The two arrived at True Yeen Mountain, both dwelling on their own problems. Wenren landed outside the pavilion's array, avoiding the patrolling disciples, and opened his book to check on how events had developed. He would be deciding right now whether to barge directly into the Violet Spirit Pavilion or order their gates open for him. Baili Qingmiao's group had arrived at the True Yeen Mountain 3 days ago. Baili Qingmiao had paced back and forth in front of their Misty Dawn bell, unsure of whether or not she should ring it. From what Elder Qingrong had said, the Violet Spirit Pavilion had told Wenzhao that since they only had one stalk of the Lockhart herb, it truly was difficult for them to give it to him. They could only let him have it if he could find a way to make a new stalk mature. The Lockhart sprouts needed the lava of True Yeen Mountain in order to grow, but the eruption could not be such that it destroyed the Violet Spirit Pavilion. He had to make the mountain erupt while keeping it in check. This was an unreasonable task. Wenzhao's party had been staying at the Violet Spirit Pavilion all this time, hanging around the crater and trying to come up with a way to make a volcano that had erupted only once in the last 3,000 years do so again. Over half a month had passed, and they had made no progress. Elder Qingrong hadn't contacted Baili Qingmiao, hoping she could complete this impossible task. She had wanted Baili Qingmiao to convince immortal Qingxue and the crane-haired wanderer to act. Qingxue was an honorary elder of Shangqing sect and ought to help in sect business anyway. Just her personality was a bit problematic. It was said that the Nangua clan was still after her life. Changqing sect knew Qingxue favored Baili Qingmiao, so they hoped Baili Qingmiao could bring her around. Also, in these few years, the name of the crane-haired wanderer had already become renowned across the cultivation world, filling the Zhongli clan with regret for passing him up. The Shangqing sect knew that Baili Qingmiao and the crane-haired wanderer had a heart-linking parasite, so thought she could convince him. With the crane-haired wanderer's help, they were sure they could satisfy the Violet Spirit Pavilion's demands. As for Su Huai, he was just a core formation disciple. No one expected him to do anything, and Baili Qingmiao just brought him along so he could go new places and gain experience. The gloomy and brooding Su Huai was actually the wildest one in the group. He had originally planned to kill Baili Qingmiao in revenge for once having been exorcised by her. If there hadn't happened to be a stillborn which he could hide in, he would have been destroyed that day, so he truly had it out for her. Furthermore, when Baili Qingmiao returned to the village and decided to take him as a disciple, he instantly agreed. He planned to become a good and obedient disciple, to put Baili Qingmiao on a pedestal and make her think of him as unfallingly loyal and considerate. That way, when he betrayed her later on, he would get to witness her expression twisted in shock and heartbreak. With these thoughts, Su-huai accepted her as master, then felt a gaze on him that made his hair stand on end. He followed the gaze and found his nominal marital ancestor licking her lips while looking at him. He broke out in a cold sweat. That night, while Baili Qingmiao meditated, immortal Qingxue kidnapped Su-huai into her hut. Su-huai was unable to resist the power of a wandering immortal, and the array she casually set up was impossible for him to break. Even if he screamed, no one outside would hear him. "Help!" The 18-year-old boy cried, pounding on the door, but the woman behind him heartlessly yanked him back. "Stop moving. Let me take a look at you," immortal Qingxue said, her eyes gleaming. She held Su-huai down against the ground and put a hand against his chest. Her eyes brightened. "A heartbeat. You're a living ghost cultivator." "So you know I'm a ghost cultivator?" Su-huai exclaimed. He thought his disguise was perfect. He had tricked Baili Qingmiao, but didn't expect immortal Qingxue to see through him at a glance. "How did you manage to cultivate the hungry ghost path while retaining a body?" Qingxue fixed her eyes on Su-huai's chest. "If I removed your heart, would you survive?" I don't know," Su-huai cried, crumbling under Qingxue's predatory gaze. "When my spirit was about to dissipate, I sensed a stillborn being born. It was a rare kind of infant, where the soul that should have occupied it had left it, but was still breathing. I possessed it, and that's how I became like this, between a living person and a ghost cultivator." Su-huai had reached Qi refining stage without any instruction because he ate the ghosts around the village. Only a ghost cultivator should be able to consume ghosts, but with Su-huai's unique constitution, he could do it while still alive and increase his spiritual essence. Hearing his explanation, Qingxue fell into deep thought and finally said, "It seems it's the matter of this body of yours. If I devoured your soul and took your body, I could probably go back to being a ghost cultivator." She seemed like such an enlightened master. After thinking for a whole night, all she came up with was this? Was her head for decoration? Su-huai tried pitifully to escape. When immortal Qingxue had him pinned down and was about to eat his soul, Baili Qingmiao's voice came from outside the hut. "Master Qingxue, disciple, where are you guys? The sun's up, so it's about time to head out." "Probably inside the hut," came the man in blindfold's warm voice. "It seems immortal Qingxue is helping you discipline your new disciple." "Really? I'll go check." Baili Qingmiao opened the door with a smile. In that moment, Qingxue let go of Su-huai and took down her array, so that Baili Qingmiao instantly caught sight of them. "Master!" For the first time, Su-huai realized that Baili Qingmiao was truly a kind and righteous person. He leapt at her and threw his arms around her waist, swearing to himself that he would treat Baili Qingmiao good in the future and never leave his master's side. He had to make sure he was never alone with immortal Qingxue. Elder Qingxue must have felt this child was rebellious and took the opportunity to teach him to obey his masters, eh? Zhongli Qian put weight into that last word, and Su-huai and Qingxue both shuddered. Qingxue may have been stronger than Zhongli Qian, but every time she met his blindfolded gaze, she felt uneasy. Unlike Wenren E's direct and oppressive manner, Zhongli Qian was gentle and never forced anyone, putting everyone around him at ease instead. Yet something about his perceptive gaze that seemed to see through everything made him intimidating. After that experience, Su-huai discarded his grudge and dedicated himself to Baili Qingmiao, treating her sincerely and considerately. Seeing Baili Qingmiao pace in front of the bell at this time, Su-huai squinted and said, "Master, are you nervous?" Baili Qingmiao flushed. It's not like I'll fall for Shishong again. Shishong is married to Liu Shijie, and I couldn't come between them. I'm just worried that since we haven't seen each other in 30 years, my emotions will be stirred and I'll affect Brother Zhongli. Su Huai was originally scared of Qingxue, but after Zhongli Qian learned Wordless Child, Su Huai and Qingxue became close instead. Su Huai also learned that immortal Qingxue was once a ghost cultivator, and the master of the Hellfire Pavilion at Xuanyan Sect. The Hellfire Pavilion! A small-time ghost cultivator like him didn't have a hope of getting close to a place like that. From then on, Su Huai has started studying under Qingxue. Gradually, his actions became influenced by Qiu Tongxue. Don't worry, Master. If you become muddle-headed again, I'll knock you out and drag you away. Senior Zhongli won't be affected at all, Su Huai said. He rang the Misty Dawn bell for Baili Qingmiao. Baili Qingmiao. ... Were they kin of different generations? Her disciple was becoming more and more like Master Qingxue. After the sounding of the bell, Baili Qingmiao showed the Violet Spirit Pavilion's disciples a greeting slip that could only be created by the Shangqing sect to verify her identity, and they invited her group in to meet Wenzhao. There was no sign of the pavilion master. Wenzhao had come with Liu Xinye and a few other disciples he was friends with. Upon seeing his little Shimei for the first time in 30 years, he stopped dead in his tracks. He gazed at her from afar, unable to look away, not even feeling Liu Xinye when she tugged on his arm. Baili Qingmiao was the same. Over these past years, she had undergone 2 heavenly tribulations, for the deity transformation and body unity stages, and each time she had wanted to let go of her resolve and return to her Shishong's side. She would be happy just looking at him from a distance. If it weren't for Zhongli Qian, who knew Baili Qingmiao's emotions at all times and could quickly help her reconsider, and the much more powerful immortal Qingxue keeping an eye on her, Baili Qingmiao would have already snuck off. Now that she was looking at Wenzhao, Zhongli Qian could feel his heart pound wildly. Even though he couldn't see, he could sense how distinguished and tender that distant silhouette was. The built-up emotions of 30 years was too intense, and for a moment, Zhongli Qian was unable to suppress Baili Qingmiao. Fortunately, Baili Qingmiao had only taken half a step forward when she felt a cold gust at her back. She pulled her head out of the way and, looking back, saw that Su Huai was swinging his bonded weapon at her, the Rod of Heartbreak. The Rod of Heartbreak was 40 meters long and as thick as Baili Qingmiao's waist. Zhongli Qian and Qiu Tongshue's help had been needed to refine it. It was capable of changing size to the wielder's will. Su Huai had made it the maximum size, and though Baili Qingmiao managed to avoid it, Wenzhao, who was standing in a daze 39 meters away, took a blow right to the head. Even if he was a void boundary cultivator, he would feel a metal stick with the thickness of a human's waist hitting him in the skull. I'm sorry. Okay. Su Huai, having missed Baili Qingmiao, spun the rod in his hand and transformed it into 2 thin sticks, about to whack her again. Baili Qingmiao was already calm with the help of Zhongli Qian and quickly reached out to stop her disciple's weapon. "Disciple, stop swinging that thing. I'm okay." Zhongli Qian showed a faint smile. Su Huai sure has immortal Qingxue to thank for his magic weapon. It was forged with the resentment of thousands of vengeful spirits before they were exorcised, all female ghosts who had been abandoned or harmed by men. It may not be a near-immortal artifact, but it has unique powers. If a woman is hit by it, her love will turn to hate. The more she loves someone, the more she'll want to kill him. If a man were to be hit by it, his body would be invaded with Yeen energy, and he will lose capabilities in a certain area. It wasn't really convenient for Zhongli Qian to explain further, so Qiu Tongxue gleefully continued for him. She was quite proud of what she'd made for her little disciple, after all. Wenzhao had been hit in the head, yet he felt agony in some other part of his body. He couldn't check in front of a bunch of other disciples, so he could only grit his teeth and say, Shimei, who is that kid behind you? Why is he trying to hit you? All right, readers, so that concludes the reading of my made-up version of Devil Venerable Also Wants to Know Volume 1. It's my made-up version because I'm reading this all from one big file. And I guess technically we don't know where exactly the second novel would have been. So I'm going to explain to you all, because I really actually don't have much to say about these chapters. But the reason why I didn't read chapter 40 like I originally planned is because on my iPad, it tells me in the books app how far along in a story I am. And by the time I was reading like chapter 39, I realized that it said that I was 50% through the book. And so I was like, oh, so I don't need to read the next chapter. So I kept reading and I finished chapter 39. And when I get to chapter 40, it says 51%. So that is why I stopped at 39 instead of reading 40. Nevertheless, we have finished the quote-unquote first novel of Devil Venerable Also Wants to Know, and I have to say, I think that's, I guess, a fine spot to end. I really don't know a good spot to end because I've never read the series before for us to take a break, because you guys know, now that we're done with this, we're going to read Peerless Volume 4. And then we'll come back to the second half of this. Anyway, like I said, I don't really have a lot to say about these 3 chapters. The only thing I can comment on is after the whole, decade of them cultivating and stuff, it was interesting to, I guess, finally see Wenren struggling with something for real, emotionally, and that being, and physically, I suppose, as well, yes, because he has the desire to, consume souls, and he had spent over a decade not doing so, a decade not doing so. And of course, the first person that he was tempted to consume was none other than Yeen Hanjiang. But he, in the midst of that, was going through emotions because he wanted to leave to go to the pavilion or whatever, but needed Yeen Hanjiang to stay behind, but found it difficult for himself to tell him to stay behind, and realizing, that his emotions are getting in the way just a bit. So it's nice to see some emotional struggle for him, and I hope he keeps exploring why he's feeling the way he's feeling, because he's like, why am I feeling this way? Normally I don't care, I don't give a hoopla. So anyway, that was pretty much all I wanted to say. As for Baili, Qingmiao, and Wenzhao finally seeing each other again after those 30 years, whew, my lord, my lord, I feel for her so much. Can't say I feel for him, but I feel for her. Maybe I feel for him like 2%. Because clearly their souls are linked together, in some kind of way. But I feel more for her because she had been trying to get over him, and then seeing him again, she was captured. Thank God for Zhongli Qian, though, because she's okay. But still, that's just really sucky. It's like if he wasn't there, if Tsong-shoo-eh wasn't there, she clearly would have just resorted back to what it was before. Really, really sucky. But I don't have anything else to say. I'm so sorry. I know it's the end and it's like, should I have more? But I don't. What I do want to say, though, is I want to give a special thanks to Ashley, but the handle on YouTube is at Sleepy Ashley, because I was tagged in, I guess, a drawing that was made. I don't know if it was made by them or someone else or whatever, but they tagged me in this little short. It was literally like a second, and it was called Dozing Off with Open Eyes, GIF, Devil Venerable Also Wants to Know. And it was them, you know, bumping their heads against each other. It was so cute. I'm going to put the link to it in the description so you guys can go see it. But she had thanked me for reading the book. And so, Ashley, I just wanted to say you're welcome. But also thank you for giving me this cute little thing. I've watched it a couple times and it's so adorable. I'm literally watching it as I'm telling you guys about it. It's so cute. Anyway, I don't have anything else to say. Oh, you know, I just saw that you commented. You said thanks. I know it's fast. With the program I have, I can only do GIFs, but I thought the scene was too funny to not try doing something. IDK. So, okay, cool. Anyway, I know I just read your comment right in the moment. That being said, because that happened, I wanted to, I guess, let you guys know that you can totally do that. I didn't really think about that being a thing on my channel, even though I know for the charity thing, I did tag Granddad Amai, but I didn't really think about you all tagging me because I know during my live session, fan art was mentioned and I was like, I'd support you guys if you did it. And it's not like I have a PO box or something for y'all to send fan art if y'all wanted me to like look at stuff and comment on stuff. But if you guys are posting videos or drawings or whatever on your YouTube accounts, you can totally tag me and I'll take a look at them. Or you can always, if you're someone who does a lot of Danmei fan art, you are more than welcome to comment your Instagram tags and Twitter. What else do I have? Actually, yeah, that's just it. Instagram and Twitter for the most part. And I'll go check you guys' stuff out. If I like it, then I'll let you know. And if I don't, then I won't, because there's no need for me to tell you I don't like it. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed these last 3 chapters. And I'm still trying to figure my life out. But I think we are going to stick to we're going to stick to the original plan, which was for me to start Peerless Volume 4 on Monday. That's going to be July the 7th that we're going to read it. And we're probably going to read that from July the 7th to July the 18th. And then after that, we'll return to Devil Venerable Also Wants to Know. January, what? July the 21st through August the 1st. Somewhere around that, and then I'll be on a week break. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, and yeah, 我爱你们。